So, how well you take care of yourself is going to reflect in the waiting room that you sit in. Guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Bird Brain Podcast, where the goal is to rise above it all, stay elevated, create that infinity, and up your you. I'm your host, Isaiah. Man, I don't know why it feels like it's been forever since I've said that slogan. I think what it has to do with is me constantly running and doing a million things at one time and not fully processing what's happening and just functioning. You know what I'm saying? I got called out on that by my bestie. Called me on my shit, and it's funny because as adults, we say all the time, yeah, I could take care of myself, or I'm an adult, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, etc. But it's like, if you really look at what you're doing and how you're doing, you might be surprised. You might be surprised. And I was thinking about what I was going to talk about today and like how I was going to make it cohesive, because there were two different things in my head, and I was like, how can I make this its own entity, right? And I thought about the concept of a waiting room, right? When you go to a doctor's office or you go for a job interview, you go dentist, get a car, anything really, there's usually a waiting room, right? And in life, in our own personal lives, we exist in waiting rooms. And sometimes while we're sitting in that room, there is a weight that we carry, right? So there's weight on you while in the waiting room. You get what I'm saying? And if you think that you take good care of yourself, right? You think that you're in tip-top shape mentally, physically, emotionally, right? I want you to ask yourself, what am I ruminating on like as of recent that could potentially be addressed, corrected, left alone, right? Or will never ever happen in real life, but instead I carry this weight around with me, and everywhere I go, it's taking up room. It's the waiting room, right? It becomes a waiting room. And it's such a concept to really think about, right? Because we have all these responsibilities and obligations throughout our lives as adults. And we think that, because we are going to work and we're doing our job well, that also indicates how well we're doing in life. And truth be told, that's only a fraction of it, right? A lot of times we do so well at our jobs because there is an incentive there. I got to keep this job because I got to pay bills, or I keep this job because my family perceives me a certain way if I don't have this particular job, right? There's an expectation there. There's a perception of a reality that I have to fulfill, right? And then when you think about how much weight that is, how much of a burden that is, that in itself kind of holds a mirror up to how well you take care of yourself. Because if you're doing things for other people to be okay with your decisions or be okay with you in life, then it's like, oh, well, am I really taking care of myself? Right? If you're the type of person that goes through life and you don't really ask for help, or you don't allow people to help you, am I really taking care of myself? Because the truth of the matter is yeah, we need assistance. And anyone who says that they do it on their own, it's like, look, everybody needs somebody, right? Even self-made entrepreneurs, if you will. The only way you can stay in business is if you have consumers, right? That's the only way you could exist. You need consumers, which means that you have a need for people. You can't go through this life not needing anybody, right? I think it's crap. How you go about that, yes, is a whole nother ball game, but I think it's important that we kind of break down and unpack the whole concept of not needing anybody, because it's a fallacy, and it lands you in the waiting room. It lands you in a space of isolation, confusion, depression, right? Suppression, regression, okay? Where your needs are not being met, you're not being taken care of, you're not healthy, right? I was talking to my friend, and we were just chit-chatting. I was like, damn, I'm tired. I was like, I'm tired. As of late, I've been really tired. And she's like, well, you know what? I'm going to be real with you. You haven't been taking care of yourself. And my bro said the same thing. Like, yeah, you're not taking care of yourself. And to hear that, it didn't shock me. Like, I didn't get defensive or anything. I was like, you know what? You are absolutely right. As much as I am present, and as much as I do, there are still waiting rooms that I exist in that are really not beneficial or the most conducive to me. And sometimes the waiting room looks like running on fumes, not eating properly, right? Not hydrating the way you should be, okay? Sometimes the waiting room exists because there's emptiness there. There's deficiency there, right? There's scarcity there. And the weight of that scarcity is burdensome, right? Maybe you're in a waiting room with a relationship of some sort where you recognize, or you keep going back and forth in your head of like, you know, is this the right relationship, the right friendship, whatever the case may be? Like, what am I doing? What are they doing? Am I waiting for them to change before I make a decision about what's necessary? Am I actually paying attention to how I feel more than my fears or concerns about hurting somebody's feelings because I make a decision that this relationship can no longer exist? Right? What waiting room do you exist in? And how are you really taking care of yourself? Right? That's why I love when people are like, oh yeah, you know, everybody has a busy life and all this other stuff. Most people aren't taking care of themselves though. You're just busy. Somebody said to me just a couple of days ago, they're like, yeah, I know you're busy with her. I was like, I'm not busy. I just do a lot. I'm not a busy person. I have a lot going on, sometimes more than what I realize, and then it catches up to me. But I don't consider myself a busy person because it doesn't. I've said this a million times. Busyness does not mean anything to me. So I don't use it. I don't say it to the people I care about. I definitely don't use it when it comes to people I care about. Oh, I've been busy. That doesn't mean shit, right? If I'm busy, the likelihood is I'm busy with things I want to be in my life, right? At least I try, right? So if I'm busy with those people, right? They are my busy, or these things that I have to accomplish. That's my busy. Okay. I think a lot of times when people use that whole concept of busyness, they're just trying to make themselves more important than what they may be. You know, it's the waiting room you exist in full of doubt, right? Let's picture yourself in a waiting room right now, right? What are you in that room for? What are you waiting for? Right? Look around the room. What color are the walls? Right? What's there to read? Are there toys? Is there a TV? What's on the TV for you? Right? If you want to have a different waiting room in your own life, it might be good to decorate it and understand, what weight am I carrying while I sit in this room? Because that's very important to understand and recognize too. Right? Sometimes we pack so much on at one time that we don't even recognize that, damn, this is weighing on me. And it shows up like when we have things going on, stressors, whatever the case may be, it shows up in very interesting ways. It's not always the point of the stress point. Like as a trainer, right, or at the gym, when I am recognizing that I may have a pulled tendon or a pulled muscle or something's just achy, it's never the point. It's never the stress point. It's something else, right? So for example, if, I recognize that my hip flexors are a little out of whack, it's likely because my core is weak, right? And my hamstrings are tight, right? All of these other things around it are affecting the functioning of this particular spot. And we have to recognize that in our personal lives too, just in our existence. A lot of times the issue isn't the issue, right? It's the other things that have exacerbated that issue. So if you recognize that there's friction in your relationship and you're trying to navigate how to go about it, the issue in itself that you're probably addressing is not even the crux of the issue in itself, right? The actual issue. What's really going on? What's the real problem? Sometimes I like to write out things, right? Before I say them to anybody, before I address it, I like to just write it out. I like to just write it out, see what's going on, and see how I feel after. Because sometimes that does it enough. Like getting it out on paper is good, or getting it on your phone notes is perfect, right? It's a constructive way to look at this thing and see what are you addressing? What's the summation of it? Okay. And can it be changed? Is this a circumstance that's an issue, or is this the character, or is it the relationship in itself that doesn't seem to function as something that's valuable, something that's being nurtured, something that's being taken care of, right? What is your waiting room? What's in your waiting room? What are you carrying into that waiting room? Okay. Being an adult is not just about paying bills. Sometimes being an adult looks like being a parent to yourself. And I think I've been slacking as a parent to myself. If I'm being honest, it's kind of crazy to recognize that. It's like, holy shit. I've been working Isaiah to the bone. He's got 1,000,008 things that he should be doing. And what am I doing about it? It's like, yes, rest is good, but sometimes it's not just about physical rest, right? The point of stress, sometimes you're physically tired because mentally and emotionally you're exhausted. Or sometimes you're physically tired because you're not getting enough nutrients, guys. Or sometimes you're physically tired because the relationships that you keep ruminating on and chewing on have been wearing you the hell out. And now here you are, exhausted. Right? Sometimes you don't need to be in motion to have your brain constantly running and to be tired from that, right? That's what a trauma response kind of is, right? Your body is activated, and then you come down from that and you're exhausted. That's why crying sometimes leaves you tired, because your body is doing what it has to do, and you may not even move anywhere. You're just kind of releasing, and then you need a nap. You need a full ass nap. Okay, so, I challenge you to think about what your waiting room is, but I also challenge you to really be honest with yourself. How do I really take care of myself? Or am I just functioning and getting by? Right? I'm guilty of it. I'm definitely guilty of it. Because I'll tell you what, it will catch up to you. It will catch up to you. And trying is definitely important. If you are being intentional, right, you are holding yourself accountable, you are prioritizing what's necessary. Sometimes we don't prioritize certain things because we're afraid, right? It seems like too big of a task. So we reject it, even when it comes to our health, even when it comes to our mental health. We keep putting it off, okay? It's so necessary and important to just recognize what's going on. And sometimes you'll know, because if you're used to operating in a high stress environment, the moment you get an opportunity to just be by yourself, you feel sleepy. And that's your body responding to safety. I'm not in this heightened sense of danger or fight or flight, so I'm tired now. And that's something crazy to think about, huh? But it happens. Okay? If you start paying attention to your body a little bit more, you'll know how well you are taking care of yourself. Your bills could be paid. Everything could be good, right? You walk out into the world, you're dressed to the nines. You look solid. You got a smile on your face. Your relationships are in good health. But if you look at yourself and you just ask yourself, or just process, what am I actually taking care of when it comes to me? How am I holding up? How am I doing? And the beautiful thing is if you have people around you who actually see you and care about you, they'll call it out too. They will recognize when you're not doing well. And if they care, they'll call you on your shit. And not just call you on your shit, they'll be like, hey, what's going on? What do you need? How do we take care of this? And if you don't have those people around you, ask yourself, well, what am I doing to create those relationships? Because I see all the time where people are like, yeah, I don't have any friends. I can't find anybody, etc. It's like, okay, so how are you trying to change that? What active steps are you taking to change that? And if they say, well, I try, but it's like, are you really trying though? Right? Are you really trying? And trying doesn't look like trying to force a friendship or a relationship. It just looks like being your authentic self, showing up and just being there and being willing, right? Being intentional, right? I think there's a difference between trying to be a friend and just being one. Because when you're trying, it comes off that way. And when you're just being you, like organically, you will connect with other people. And that's what I think people get lost in, because it's like sometimes you are desiring the company of people who may not want your company or who don't even fit what you're looking for. And because it doesn't work out with them, automatically, oh, I don't have any friends, or it's so hard to find friends. It is hard to find solid friends. I'll tell you that, because we don't know the formula is not out there for friendship, guys. It is for marriage. It is for a romantic partner. But only recently is the topic of friendship becoming more of a staple in conversations. Very recently, I'm talking about, I've only been hearing about it the most within the last, I'd say 6 months, maybe a year if I'm being generous. But up until this point, the concept of friendship doesn't really get discussed in a ways to understand, one, the delicacy of it, but also the importance of it. The importance of it as a relationship in your life for you to get through it. Right? So again, I ask you, what is the waiting room that you exist in? And if you think that you can take care of yourself, how are you taking care of yourself? Outside of paying your bills and getting up and going to work, right? How are you taking care of yourself? Right? When you need help, when you need support, do you isolate? Right? Because that's not taking care of yourself. Actually, that's rejecting your needs. Trying to do everything on your own, that's not taking care of yourself. That's actually rejecting you needing support. So you're actually neglecting yourself if we're thinking about it in that way. Okay? Just things to put in your pocket and think about. But, when my friend called me out, it was something for me to really take charge on and be like, what is the waiting room? Because sometimes when you stop taking care of yourself, you will end up in a waiting room, right? You will end up in a waiting room to get the results of what's going on with you. You're not just going in for a checkup, there's now something that's present. And even in relationships, if a relationship is not being tended to, there's a waiting room. And sometimes that is very weighted, because a lot of times we're waiting for somebody else to make a decision, or we are now riddled with having to make a decision about what happens next. Do we do surgery or do we call it? We are all existing in some kind of waiting room. And the weight that we carry is sitting there with us. So check in. Right? Take your time, slow down, prioritize differently, right? Recalibrate. Because it's great to say, oh yeah, I know I should be doing these things or whatever, but you're not doing it. The fact that the fact that you have awareness means that you are now intentionally diverting. All right? So just think about it. Okay? And don't just think about it, act on it. Right? Check the waiting room. Ask yourself, am I really taking care of myself? And write it out. See what it looks like. Aside from just the practical things of functioning as an adult, how else are you taking care of yourself? All right. So with that being said, take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. And please take care of each other. Act like the people in your life are people that you give a damn about, and that they are delicate, because they are. We all are. We are very fragile. And even a strong relationship has weak spots that need to be tended to. All right. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all. Coaching is available. I have slots open for new clients. I've got some new clients on board, and it's a blessing. I learned something new from each client that I have. No two clients have been the same. And when I tell you guys, that is amazing, because it forces me to think abstract, right? It forces me to just naturally pivot. I love that. I've learned something from each one of my clients. And it's usually a mirror or a window. All right. So yes, take care of yourselves. You can subscribe to the podcast as well, get bonus content, early access, all that good stuff. If you're on Spotify, you can get early access and bonus episodes. Same thing with Apple Podcasts, same thing with Patreon, right? So yes, you have access where others may not. Okay. So take care of yourselves. Again, take care of yourselves. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And take flight.